I'm in the show. Everyone can see and hear me. Hi, guys. Welcome. Oops, let's see what's going on. It'd be really nice if I get a minute. Going live. Okay. Did the music. Hey, great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the program. Welcome to Children of the Sun. Little confession to make. My engineer and myself both just realized that it's Friday. So this is kind of an ad hoc program we're doing today. Fortunately, I did start the reading yet last week, so we said last week we would continue this week with the reading, so at least we got that lined up. Um, so, welcome to Children of the Sun for Friday, August 5th, 2022, broadcasting on WSTX AM 970, the soul of the Caribbean, from beautiful St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands in the turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea. So I want to say welcome to the program, welcome to the weekend, um, to all my listeners in Christiansted, Frederickstead, Kings Hill, Buck Island, St. Thomas, St. John, Water Island, Joss Van Dyke, BVI in general, Up Island, Down Island, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, Aruba. Welcome to Cuba and the Florida Keys if the ionosphere is cooperating, radio signal wise. Welcome to the world, really, because we are broadcasting live on Facebook, um, maybe YouTube and Twitch. I don't know. At any rate, it'll be available on YouTube. I publish the shows. If you can't find them on the radio station's YouTube channel, you can always find a copy on my channel, Ray Bratcher. I am Ray Bratcher. I'll be your host for the next couple of hours here on Children of the Sun. I teach Sacred Breath here in St. Croix. So, like I say, kind of an ad hoc show today. We'll be continuing the reading from last week, so at least we've got some semblance of order and structure. Um, but I do want to begin with some editorializing, some editorial comments. Um, people use different people use the word woke in different ways. For some people, woke means to be awakened to the inherent systemic problems of patriarchy and systemic racism, white privilege in the U.S. That would particularly apply. Um, for others, woke means to be awakened spiritually, to be spiritually aware, to be conscious, to realize. And there almost seems to be a not very helpful, to my way of thinking, conflict between these two groups. The spiritual people don't want to have anything to do with any kind of activism, any kind of social justice work. Some of the it takes two flavors, but it really boils down to the same thing. But I'll say it the way they say it. So the non-dual people are saying, the world isn't real. Your suffering is not real. And you create it for yourself. Thoughts create reality. And so therefore, I, as a spiritually awake person, I don't need to get involved in that. It's not spiritually elevated for me to get involved in that, for me to do activism. Well, I mean, saying to somebody who's been oppressed their entire lives that their suffering is their own fault comes across as really tone deaf at the very least. And whether or not the world is real, the suffering is real. You know, Neo in the Matrix, if he didn't eat, he got hungry. And, you know, historically, Jesus and Buddha both addressed the problem of human suffering, even though they knew it wasn't real. So that's not, you know, that's not like really a escape hatch for you. And then the other flavor is the people who want to practice positivity. They want to have high vibes. They don't want to be brought down, have their vibe, have the vibe. You bring the vibe down when you talk about problems in the world. You know, I want to be at a high vibe and keep all the problems away. And I call that toxic positivity. Because, that's that's not my path. Maybe it's yours, and maybe there's nothing wrong with it. But at this time, right now, especially, maybe you could get away with this kind of thing during a time in history where things were not so problematic. But right now, in this current late epoch, where the very question of human extinction, or at least the extinction of human civilization as we've known it, is a 50-50 proposition. Maybe now is not the time to be running away from problems. And if problems, facing them squarely and truthfully and honestly, make you nervous and make you want to run away, maybe that's something you want to look at. Maybe you want to go within yourself and look at the energy of rejection that's arising within you in response to that, and look at that as a telltale sign that maybe there's something within yourself that you haven't actually faced and dealt with. When people tell me that spirituality should have nothing to do with social activism because the world's not real and social activism makes it real, or they want to vibe at a high vibe and a high frequency, and social activism gets them embroiled in angry political arguments that bring their vibe down. To me, one, it's really just more white privilege rebranded, really, right? Because I can't help but notice that all the people who talk like that are white. So you may be in a white privileged position to ignore, maybe even completely be unaware of oppression of marginalized communities, and therefore ignore and be unaware of their suffering, and therefore go off on your high frequency, high vibe, the world's not real, castle in the air existence. But that's just more white privilege under a different brand. Now you're branding yourself as non-dual or high vibe or positivity Penelope, positive Penelope, right? So it's just white privilege rebranded. And then the second thing about it is bereft of compassion and empathy. And compassion and empathy are the central aspects of true spiritual awakening. So if you have a spiritual awakening that is empty of compassion and empathy, I'm not really sure you've actually had a spiritual awakening. I'm not sure what you've had. But it works the other way too. spiritually, social activists, people engaged in social justice work, kind of like shy away from spirituality. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And that doesn't work either, especially now when we see the institutional structures crumbling around us. The old structures are crumbling, and we can't replace them with just copies, the same thing. I mean, yeah, social justice work where you protest and you boycott and you get out in the streets and you do this or you do that. I want to submit that is trying to use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Because ultimately, the master's house is the ego's house. All of these structures that have oppressed people and marginalized people and kept people in suffering are conditioned egoic structures. They are the ego. It comes out of conflict. It comes out of judgment and blame and separating, seeing yourself as separate from the other instead of realizing that we are all one. So you're always in constant opposition and battle and conflict with the other. And if you see the other as your oppressor, as the person who benefits from the current system, who benefits from the privilege and the systemic racism, you're attacking back with the same tools that you were attacked with in the first place. And the whole system is based on keeping people separate and keeping people at each other's throats. So it's like within that system, you can protest and demonstrate and be a social activist. But you're actually, because the system is ego-based, you are actually just continuing the system. You are not breaking out of the system, and you're not destroying the system. You're keeping the system going. It's, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Conflict only engenders more conflict. Seeing the oneness between all people so that you transcend conflict, you rise above conflict, you go above the battlefield, and now you're looking down on the battlefield from above, from a higher point of view, from a fifth dimensional point of view, and you're looking at that battlefield, and you are bringing about true change. Because you are showing the other that they are one with you, and that anything they do to oppress and marginalize you is only harming themselves. And we create a new society that's not based on patriarchy, that's not based on hierarchy, that's not based on conflict and the ego's ideas of lack and scarcity, that if you have it, I don't. If I have it, you don't. If I get ahead, you have to fall behind. If you get ahead, I fall behind. We create an open-ended society that lets everyone grow and have peace and stability and security and feel safe and loved and appreciated. And, going back to the spiritual people who want to just do positive thinking and be high vibe and don't want to be dragged down by getting involved in politics. So, first of all, why are you being dragged down by getting involved in politics? Can you not enter into a political discussion without getting your triggers triggered and your buttons pushed? Can you not bring your supposedly elevated spiritual stance into that political discussion so that it can become a fruitful discussion where people are heard on both sides? They hear each other and they felt heard, and they are they don't fall into angry, argumentative style lies debates. Can there be like a sharing of views without people getting into defensive-ness and feeling threatened and getting angry? Who's going to bring that peaceful, peace-oriented viewpoint towards conflict resolution into the political discussion if it's not the spiritual people? What are you here for? And if you're staying away from political discussions because they bring your vibe down, then maybe you need to improve your skills. Maybe as a spiritual person, you need to ask yourself why you're having such a hard time with that. I mean, I really think that there's got to at least be a conversation between the politically awake people and the spiritually awake people. And the more politically awake people we have that are spiritually awake, and the more spiritually awake people we have that are politically awake, the better. And getting back to using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. The master's house is falling apart. It's falling down into complete chaos. The world is falling apart. All of our institutions have let us down. Our systems are crumbling. We are on the precipice of extinction. And the only thing, turning to the same egoic way of thinking that got us here in the first place as being what's going to save us is idiotic. I mean, I'm sorry to be judgmental, but the egoic idea of scarcity and conflict is what got us here. It's been running mankind for the last 10,000 years. It was a necessary step. But we have now gotten to the point where it is time to go beyond it, to go to the next step, to take the next quantum leap into the next level of evolution. And but it used to be people who were at this level were few and far between. You get one person every 5,000 years or 2,500 years. Now they're popping up all over the place because consciousness wants to evolve, and that's the next step. And that's why the environment, and by environment I mean like the world and political situation, the institutions, the exposure, the raw, naked exposure of how oppressive the systems that we've been living under truly are, that is just being exposed for everyone to see. All of this is happening because when it's time to evolve to the next step, any organism, it responds to its environment. And when the environment, like right now, our environment is demanding a response from us. We keep going the way we've been going, we're all going to die. If we evolve, we'll go to the next level. We'll reestablish equilibrium at a higher level. So, so we can't use the same egoic way of thinking, the master's tools, to dismantle the master's house. We have to go to the next level, where we realize that we are all one. We are all loved. We are all safe and secure. and that if we come together to utilize the abundant resources of this planet, we can together create a world of abundance, peace, and unrestricted human growth. So, end of editorial comment. Um, and yeah, it's like you can use, if you're a politically awake person and you feel like you don't want to have a peaceful discussion with people on the other side, they're wrong, and you just need to defeat them and get your way. Or you're a spiritually awake person and you don't want to have a conversation with the activists because they're wrong and you just need to ignore them so you can stay up in the clouds. Both of you are feeling, you're having thoughts about the situation, and then you have emotions that come up with those thoughts, and you can get like focused on what's going on outside of you, looking at how the other side is completely wrong. But what you really want to do is look at the energy that is arising within you, within yourself, in reaction to that. Because that energy that is arising within you, that's your opportunity. That is your opportunity for massive growth. You can like really go into that energy and see what it's telling you. It is showing you the next step in your own personal evolution. And it's really fast. You could work with that energy and in a couple of months not even recognize yourself, be such a higher level, more evolved person. So that energy, working with that energy is what, it's what I teach. I call it embodied enlightenment, bringing spiritual awakeness back down into form instead of just staying out in the clouds somewhere. But there's all kinds of teachings along these lines and people sharing about it. I mean, not a lot. It's not like it's still kind of a minor element of us, but there are some people sharing about this from different perspectives. So I think it's always good to bring in different ways of explaining, like I was mentioning last week, because you understand stuff better, at least I do, when I have it explained to me in more than one way. So one of the people doing this is Michael Brown, and he calls it alchemy of the heart. And that's one of the things also that I talk about. When you follow this energy, you will eventually realize that it starts in the heart, that the conditioned egoic mind begins in the heart. Your thoughts begin in your heart. There's a connection between the heart and the brain, which becomes the mind, which becomes the ego. So the ego is not an entity. The ego is an activity, and the activity is contraction. Your energy field contracts, and the root contraction, the very beginning of the ego, is the contraction in the heart. And when you are open to receiving the messages from your energetic responses to your environment, your perceptions, and your perceptions can also be the thoughts in your own head, because you're perceiving those thoughts in your brain. Like you're over here, the thoughts are over there. So anything where you're in a subject-object relationship is a perception. So it can be the car in front of you on Melvin Evans, or it can be a thought in your head. But when you are perceiving, you are reacting or responding energetically. And if you ride that energy back to its source, the head rivers of life itself, you will find it in the heart. So that's why he's titled his book Alchemy of the Heart. And so we will continue the reading from last week, still on chapter 1. Almost done with chapter 1. If you recall, we finished last week with the story of the blindness. The guy looking for his key under the street lamp, even though he lost it in his house, because the light under the street lamp was better, as an illustration of how we are always looking for the answer out there when the answer is within us. So then now we move on to the next section. Questions not meant to be answered. There are questions that are not meant to be answered. They are only meant to be asked. If we attempt to answer these types of questions, we invariably do so. If we attempt to answer these types of questions, we invariably do so using the process of thinking, and therefore we only receive answers as mental concepts. If we settle for mental concepts, it means we are satisfied with information, not knowledge. And I've often said that there's a difference between intelligence, being smart, and wisdom. And one of the problems in the world, with the world, is that the world is run by very smart and intelligent people. If we settle for mental concepts, it means we are satisfied with information, not knowledge. Information is thought form that has only a mental component to it. Knowledge, on the other hand, contains an integrated mental and emotional experience. This approach to asking questions may not be appropriate for all questions, but it is a highly efficient tool when it comes to deliberately grounding experiential knowledge of the unspeakable into our daily experience. The more profound our questions, the more profound the life experience we initiate when we do not answer them with mental concepts. You know what, guys? I'm going to take my camera is also my microphone, and I'm just going to move it closer so that you can hear me very well. But that may make the video not so great. Oh, I could stop the camera. That way you're not looking at. Well, maybe I'll do it like this. All right, now you get to see that's not actually my house, by the way. That's a virtual background. Okay, let's see. No, let me see. Yeah, it's like showing you. All right, so I'm going to keep going. And now I think you might be able to hear me a little better because I'm right next to the. I'm going to stop the camera. If I stop the camera, I'm going to leave it like this. Let's see what happens. All right. The more profound our questions, the more profound the life experience we initiate when we do not answer them with mental concepts. Knowing how to ask questions without answering them is the art of initiating revelation. We may ask, what is an important question to ask? Asking a question like this without answering it mentally opens the parameters of our personal experience to the horizon of unlimited possibility. 3 questions. There are 3 questions that, when asked authentically, restore awareness within us of a reality that has become hidden. Within this text, we call this reality the unspeakable. It is deliberately called the unspeakable to communicate that it cannot be grasped through a purely mental approach, because speaking is words, which are mental. Once an awareness of this reality is restored within us, its vibration radiates into all aspects of our life experience. The 3 questions are: 1, what am I? Not who. Asking who opens us to personality-driven answers. Who has to do with concepts and behavioral traits, not with awareness of our authentic essence. What am I? What is God for us? Again, it is best not to use the word who. When God is a who, we are invariably dabbling in culturally based belief systems, i.e., egoic conditioning, your judgments about reality rather than reality itself. Where am I now? This is a question we seldom ask because we assume we know where we are, just as we tend to mistakenly assume we are the conceptual and behavioral personality we have manufactured, the outer identity everyone in our life interacts with. We also tend to mistakenly assume God is the personality driven identity our religions have fed us, an identity manufactured from within the limitations of our human intellect. In a similar way, we may mistakenly assume where we are right now is defined by the physical address or geographical location of our living circumstances. But is it really? The reason we may struggle to answer these 3 questions is that we automatically attempt to supply either a physical or a mental answer. Yet neither the physical nor mental aspects of our human experience have the capacity to engage any question whose answer is only available as a vibrational transmission. Therefore, unless we reactivate our capacity to interact directly with our vibrational essence, we remain blind to these answers even when they are closer to us than the air we breathe. Only through consciously shedding our blindness do we initiate the journey of awakening, leading us from living unconsciously toward a conscious conversation with the unspeakable. Chapter 2, The Pathway of Awareness. Only through consciously shedding our blindness. It's a conscious act. You have to do the work on yourself. Whether you want to be spiritually awake or politically awake, either way, you have to do the work on yourself. There's no getting around it. There's no easy way. The only way You shed your blindness is consciously. You have to get off the railroad track to nowhere. All right, chapter 2, the pathway of awareness. Our awareness travels along an intentional, energetic pathway to enter our experience of life upon earth. Its existence is right in front of our nose, yet it remains hidden until shown to us. Throughout this book, we call this the pathway of awareness. Once we realize real, R-E-A-L, eyes, E-Y-E-S, or realize, R-E-A-L-I-Z-E, once we realize how this energetic pathway is in full view of us at all times, yet completely hidden from our awareness until our attention is brought to it, we may wonder what else about our human experience is hidden within plain sight. This energetic pathway of awareness is most clearly visible in the initial development of a newborn child. First, the child is an emotional being. It can only emote. Then, as it learns to use its emotions to communicate, it gradually enters mental awareness. Next, it becomes conscious enough to reach out and deliberately grab hold of and maintain physical contact with something. Even though the child's emotional, mental, and physical attributes develop simultaneously, there is a systematic, energetic pathway that the child's awareness intentionally travels along to enter a full encounter with life upon this earth. The pathway runs from the emotional to the mental to the physical. The 7-year cycle. The pathway of awareness from emotional to mental to physical that we traveled along and continue to travel along in order to enter and manifest our current experience of life upon earth is also clearly perceivable in what we may call the 7-year cycle. Emotional. During the first 7 years of our life, we are called children. During childhood, it is accepted that we are, for the most part, emotional beings. We are literally energy spontaneously in motion. Emotion. Energy in motion. Mental. Around the age of 7, we depart childhood and are then called young boys and girls. As young boys and girls, we enter an educational institution intended to direct our awareness into the mental body. We are taught to read, write, count, and communicate efficiently through a set of prescribed letters and numbers. Physical. After another 7 years, around the age of 14, we are no longer called boys and girls. We are teenagers. As teenagers, we experience a physiological transformation within our physical body, marking an entry into a more physically magnified experience. We call this physical transformation puberty. After puberty, there is a definite shift in our relationship with our physical experience. This is evident, for example, in our relationship with our sexuality. Before puberty, a young boy's or girl's approach to adults kissing is yuck. Afterward, there is deep attraction to the experience. After another 7 years, we turn 21 and are no longer regarded as teenagers. We are called young adults. To commemorate our arrival at adulthood and the completion of this cyclic journey from childhood, emotional, to teenager, mental, to adult, physical, we usually celebrate. We celebrate because in this moment, some part of our journey is completed. And yet, another aspect is simultaneously commencing. the right passageway. There have been periods upon Earth when we were acutely aware of the pathway of awareness and the 7-year cycle. During these periods, in history he means, communities were intimately involved in facilitating their members along the pathway of awareness so that the integrity of their awareness was maintained as they passed through the first 3 7-year cycles. This conscious facilitation along the pathway of awareness took place when we were aligned with our indigenous nature, when we embraced the realm of when we embrace the realm of nature as our teacher. It is beneficial to reach within and bring our indigenous nature back into the forefront of our conscious awareness. Not with intent to return to it, but to integrate it. By integrating our indigenous nature, we are able to make the shift from our attachment to the outer teacher, form, to the inner teacher, vibration. Making this shift consciously and experientially is the leap that reveals to us the evolutionary purpose of humanity. We may effortlessly integrate our indigenous nature by telling of a story. We tell a story reminding us of the right passageway for our awareness to move along as it enters an experience of this earth. This right passageway may also be called a rite of passage. Alchemy of the heart is a rite of passage. The naming ceremony. Let us tell the story of a rite of passage as we may experience it when consciously embracing our indigenous nature. This is the story of the naming ceremony. Ceremony in the phonetic language contains within it the camouflaged phrase, see a memory, ceremony, see a memory. When a child is born within a community that embraces indigenous awareness, it is not just given any name. For instance, it is not given a name chosen physically in recognition of its ancestral lineage. Neither is it given a name chosen mentally by selecting it from a list in a book. Nor is it given a name chosen emotionally by selecting a name intended to gratify the self-importance of certain family members. Communities that embrace their indigenous awareness realize that a child's entry into life is intimately a part of every facet of the life it is entering into. Its birth moment is therefore not perceived as separate from unfolding social conditions, from the movement of the seasons, or from the rainbow of ever-changing faces any aspect of the cosmos expresses at that precise moment. The child is therefore given a name that reflects the personality of the moment in which it exits the womb and enters life upon earth. The child may therefore be named Strange Wind, or Many Crows, or First Dew. For the most part, this child grows up being overseen by all adults. From birth, it is allowed to be spontaneous energy in motion so that it may fully explore and integrate the parameters of its emotional body. It's not made wrong for being free. Also, by carefully observing the way the child's energy moves, the elders are able to recognize whether this child is the return of someone they know. When the child turns 7 and becomes a young boy or girl, another naming ceremony is conducted. This time it is given a name reflecting what has been witnessed about the way its energy moves upon the earth within its first 7 years. It may receive a name like flowing water or gentle turtle or wind in grass. At this point, the elders begin applying their responsibility as teachers of the children. In such a community, it is the parents' task to collectively nurture and protect all the children. But it is accepted that young childbearing adults do not yet have the wisdom to educate children. Wisdom within indigenous communities therefore flows from elder to grandchild. Once a new name is given to a 7-year-old, the young boy or girl is no longer permitted to run freely around the fire at night. They are instructed to sit and pay attention to the stories told by the elders. These stories activate their conscious entry into the development and integration of the mental body. At the age of about 14, the young boys and girls are considered ready to approach adulthood, and this moment is marked by another naming ceremony. During this occasion, the given name reflects what the elders perceive about their mental capacity. The children may therefore receive names such as sees gently, or listens like mountain, or knows like eagle. At this point, the emerging young adults are taught and given physical responsibilities within the community, serving to deliver them confidently along the passageway from young boys and girls to competent and responsible men and women. Many of the tasks involve general living skills, but each individual is also given responsibilities carefully selected according to their unique display of mental capacity. To mark the transition from a focus on mental activity to increased physical participation within the community, their body awareness is impacted. They go through ceremonial experiences in which their physical body is marked by painting, piercing, and tattooing. At the age of 21, the young men and women are given a final name, the name they carry with them throughout their journey into elderhood. This name reflects the way they carry themselves through their physical, mental, and emotional experience. The name may be anything from runs like deer to wild war horse to laughs like smoke. The Vision Quest. During the final naming ceremony, the individual is completely removed from the presence of the community and enters an experience called a vision quest. Among the many rites of passage this ceremony involves, two initiations in particular are carried out. One, the initiate has their awareness expanded beyond the perceptual confines of their mundane experience. This is accomplished through a physical practice like dancing rhythmically all night, or by the ingesting of plant medicines as administered by the medicine elder. The intent of this initiation is to empower through direct experience a transmission to the individual that it is not only a member of a community, but also an intimate participant in the entire cosmos. Two, the initiate is taken to an isolated area where a circle is drawn around them in the ground or constructed using stones, whereupon they are instructed to remain within its confines until fetched. They are left alone for 4 or 5 days with only water to drink. The intent of this initiation is to empower the individual to have a direct experience of their own energy, an encounter with their own vibrational state of being. as our purpose is a state of being and not something we do, this energetic encounter with the vibrational essence of their own being facilitates the attaining of a vision of their life's purpose. When the individual is reintroduced into the community, they enter with the awareness of their purpose within that community, simultaneously interwoven with an awareness of their intimate connection with the entire cosmos. This deliberately invited and instilled vision fosters a profound sense of personal and community-based responsibility. This initiation into adulthood is also the foundation upon which all other experiences mature in a manner that equips the individual to navigate their life experience toward the mantle of elderhood. Next section, consciously or not. The nature of our human experience is that we continue to do what we are supposed to do, whether we are aware we are doing it or not. Teenagers unconsciously know they are supposed to impact or mark their physical body in some way to acknowledge the movement of their awareness from mental to physical. Accordingly, they tattoo and pierce their body. Without an authentic elder's guidance, teenagers may turn this piercing and tattooing ceremony into a statement of rebelliousness, as well as into a means to sedate and control inner discomfort. In this way, a rite of passage, a sacred act, becomes reactionary behavior and an addictive fashion statement. When completing their third 7-year cycle, emerging adults intuitively know they are supposed to move away from their community and enter a ceremony to alter their consciousness. Accordingly, they move away from the presence of adults, buy a keg of beer, maybe obtain mind-altering drugs, have a party, and become intoxicated. In other words, lacking the guidance of elders, emerging adults now become unconsciously intoxicated in the very moment when they are required to consciously experience the power of their inner altar, ALTAR. A potential experience of Holy Communion becomes an entry into self-destructive confusion. Without elders, the children of this earth are lost in the wilderness. Yet we do what we are supposed to, whether we are aware that we are doing it or not. If we do not know why we are doing what we are doing, then we do it unconsciously. Rites of passage entered consciously integrate. Rites of passage entered unconsciously disintegrate. Our unconscious prayers. A young man is walking through a desert with an elder. They had been walking for hours through the isolated beauty of the wilderness. And part of training to become a breath worker, at least in the school that I was associated with, is a vision quest. And I have had like 55-year-old insurance industry executives, owners actually, do a vision quest and be brought to tears at the end of it and just be astounded at the growth. Our unconscious prayers. A young man is walking through a desert with an elder. They've been walking for hours through the isolated beauty of the wilderness when they come upon a large and unusual rock outcrop. It is marked unflatteringly with graffiti and surrounded by shards of smashed beer bottles. This is a sacred place, the elder states with reverence. We must stop here for a moment and lay down a prayer with some tobacco. Sacred, the young man objects. Look at it, it's a mess. And I got here on St. Croix, I've had that experience of sacred places littered with litter. And it's like I look at it in two ways. I look at it through one set of eyes and I see the sacredness. And then I look at it through another set of eyes and I see the trash. And it's like two different places. And I can't really explain that, but I've had, you can see through the trash to the sacredness. Sacred, the young man objects. Look at it, it's a mess. Yes, it is sacred, the elder states softly. People come upon this place and feel the energy emanating from it. Through a voice they no longer know is speaking to them, they realize it is an altar and that they are supposed to acknowledge it, to be altered by it. The elder continues in a quiet voice. But there are few elders left to teach us these ways. So instead, we behave in the only way we know how. We drink beer, mark the rocks with our confused symbols, and smash the bottles to express our rage. Instead of acting our age, we act out our rage. Our sacred prayers have become destructive spells that we unconsciously cast upon the earth. The elder carefully takes a pinch of tobacco from his pouch and offers it to the ground. Let us stand here together and say something of power for this place. Chapter 3, The Stories We Tell. A man called Frank lives next door to a successful rabbit breeder. The rabbit breeder breeds many admired rabbits, but there is one particular specimen called Fluffy, of which he often speaks glowingly. Fluffy is the most beautiful prize-winning rabbit he has bred. Fluffy is also a stud, siring large numbers of valuable offspring. Even more importantly, Fluffy is the heart and soul of his daughter's life. His daughter begins and ends each day with Fluffy in her arms. This morning, Frank awakens to discover something shocking hanging from his dog's mouth. He reaches down to gently prise Fluffy's limp, soiled, and saliva-covered body from Rover's jaws. He stands there momentarily paralyzed as a sense of deep panic washes through every vein in his body. Then in his thoughts, a story begins. The neighbor is going to kill me for sure. His daughter is going to go through multiple doses of irreparable childhood trauma, all because my stupid dog has killed Fluffy. In 10 years' time, she'll still be in therapy. Rover has just destroyed a peaceful neighborhood. I'm in deep trouble. I must do something. Frank examines Fluffy closely and finds no puncture marks from Rover's teeth. He assumes Fluffy died of fright when Rover caught him. He creeps to the fence and peeks over to where Fluffy's cage rests, and there he sees, as plain as the dawning day, that the cage door is wide open. Rover must somehow have opened the door, he tells himself, and grabbed the poor defenseless creature. It is unlike Rover to behave like this, but no other scenario surfaces within Frank's mind. What is he to do? It is still early, and Frank can see his neighbors haven't stirred yet. A brilliant but desperate idea surfaces. Frank rushes into his bathroom with Rover close behind. He takes out his best shampoo and conditioner, then gives the dead rabbit the finest hair treatment any rabbit, dead or alive, ever received. Next, he blow dries the limp body until it looks beautifully fluffy again, just as any prize show rabbit should. Then, for the final step, he fetches a carrot from the fridge, silently climbs the fence into his neighbor's yard, and gently places Fluffy back in his cage, sitting him perfectly upright with a half-eaten carrot stuck in his mouth. He closes and latches the door, then hastily returns to his house. The neighbor will assume Fluffy died choking on a carrot. Disaster has been averted. Frank makes himself a cup of coffee, then eats breakfast. About an hour later, he is in his yard filling Rover's water bowl for the day when he hears his neighbor scream. Then he hears his neighbor's wife scream. Then he hears their daughter become completely hysterical. Then he hears all three of them screaming together. Frank observes his neighbors gathering around Fluffy's cage. He wants to run and hide, but his distraught neighbors catch sight of him. To avoid appearing suspicious, Frank walks casually toward them with a concerned look on his face. The breeder, shaking his head from side to side, pale as a sheet, comes over to meet him at the fence. "What's going on?" Frank asks, trying to sound convincingly curious but not overly concerned. "I really don't know," blurts his neighbor, looking dazed, confused, bewildered, and somewhat horrified. "Last night, Fluffy died in my daughter's arms from tick bite fever, and then we buried him under a foot of soil in the backyard." The Art of Magic. The story about Frank illustrates what happens when we rely solely on the mental and physical aspects of our human experience as the medium to interpret what is unfolding in our lives. The approach of thinking we understand what is happening according to what we physically see unfolding in front of us is what causes us to become mental about everything. It is the source of all drama. Our journey into becoming mental about everything commences when we are children and gathers momentum when we become institutionalized. That is, as we enter the institution called education. Whether we are aware of it or not, from the moment we embark upon schooling, we are indoctrinated into the art of magic. In fact, we are taught how to become master magicians. The very first lesson we receive is how to spell words. Words are the roots of all spells. This is why we have to learn how to spell them. Once we are able to spell enough words, we are then taught to arrange them to construct sentences. These arrangements of words, called sentences, are our curses and incantations. They sentence us and others to specific perceptual points of view. These sentences or points of view become the foundation of all our belief systems. Once we have learned enough sentences, we are then taught stories. They are always his story, history. History is the mental body's version of reality. History is always written by victors or victims, and victors and victims always lie. That is, report from a point of view that is inherently biased. The moment we accept any given history, any point of view, we automatically become mental. This is because through acceptance of the story we are told, we simultaneously accept the means whereby the story is communicated to us, the magical use of words and sentences to convey specific mental perceptions. We then use the same technique, the same magical art, the same spelled words and sentences to tell ourselves stories about what we think is happening or has happened to us. The stories we tell ourselves become my story. The mystery, my story, mystery. My story is purely a mental interpretation of the physical events happening within our life experience. This story does not include the emotional component and is therefore incomplete. In this manner, our every mental interpretation becomes a doorway to misinterpretation. Like Frank, we tell stories based on a mental analysis of our physical circumstances. We then act upon our conclusions and assumptions, and this in turn feeds an ongoing drama that is both comic and tragic. This spellbinding predicament is one perspective on the symbol of the snake eating its tail. The symbol mirrors our propensity for digesting the tales we tell ourselves. Inviting integration. We also have the capacity to untangle ourselves from the story we have told by telling ourselves another story. This time, an integrated story intended to deliberately bring us into full awareness. When wielded with deliberate intent, the same magical ability we use every moment to entrap ourselves in drama has the capacity to liberate us. This is because the deliberate wielding of our intent to activate integrated awareness automatically awakens the emotional component that is missing from our purely physical and mental interpretations. Once we consciously engage our life experience from a physical, mental, and emotional point of view, we enter into wholeness or integration. As the phonetics of these words suggest, to become whole again is to become holy, and to integrate is to move into greatness. This unweaving of a spell to regain an awareness of our wholeness is another perspective on the symbol of the snake eating its tail. We swallow ourselves whole to digest the truth. Karma and consequences. Let us begin this unweaving of our victim and victor spells with the issue of karma. We have all heard the expression and may even have used it ourselves. This is our bad karma, or this is our good karma. Karma is another word for consequence. Everything is consequence, and therefore everything is karma. We label consequences good or bad depending on the current story we are telling ourselves. When consequences appear to fit our story, they are good. But when they interrupt the flow of our story, they are bad. There is an element of accuracy in the statement that what is happening to us is either our bad karma or our good karma. However, one of the barometers that shows us we are moving into a deepening awareness is when it starts becoming apparent to us that what we used to call our good karma is entrapment in unconsciousness. And what we used to call our bad karma is actually the key to our liberation into integrated awareness. Use the energy. That's your opportunity. Beyond the confines of the story we tell ourselves about what we think is going on, there really are no good or bad consequences. There are just consequences, and all consequences are just. A question well worth asking is, where is this good and bad karma stored? Where is the causal point of the unfolding consequences that determine the resonances of the physical, mental, and emotional components of our life experiences. By the time we are next section, physically transfixed. By the time we are considered adults, we perceive the world in a particular way. When asked to recount the experiences we call our past, we do so by offering a chronological accumulation of ever-changing physical events and circumstances. This perception of our life as an accumulation of physical events and circumstances means we have entered a physically trance, trance, like in a trance, like you've been hypnotized. We have entered a physically transfixed point of view. We now look out upon a world that appears physically solid and inanimate to us, a world in which everything matters. Yet, when we observe the eyes of a newborn child, it is obvious they perceive the world very differently. Judging by the way their eyes move upon their surroundings, it is as if they have no point of focus, as if all they look upon is in constant movement. Their world appears to them as constant energy in motion. Quantum physicists tell us there really is no solid, static, and lifeless matter, that everything, no matter how solid and inanimate it appears to be, is alive with constant movement. Why does an adult require a powerful microscope to realize what a newborn child experiences effortlessly? Felt perception. The reason we perceive the world as inanimate, as solid and lifeless, is that by the time we are adults, we are physically transfixed. We are physically transfixed because our heart awareness is shut down. Heart awareness is felt perception. Felt perception is the ability to feel the consequences of our thoughts, words, and deeds even before we put them into play. When we function from the capacity of felt perception and we intend to hurt someone, we feel hurt before even acting upon this intent. When we function from the capacity of felt perception, the nature of our presence upon earth is therefore guided intimately by our heart. This is the meaning of the ancient statement, where there is love, there is no law. We only require laws when we cannot feel the consequences of our behavior. This capacity to feel is also the perceptual attribute enabling us to perceive that there is life and therefore movement in everything. When we live with our felt perception shut down or diminished, we forgo the fullness of the experience that life on earth has to offer. No conscience. We have our heart awareness shut down between the ages of 7 and 14. Because of this, it would be impossible and quite intolerable for us, as we are now, to function efficiently in our lives if we instantly activated full-blown felt perception within the adult world as we experience it. It would be too painful because the consequences of our thoughts, words, and deeds, especially as they are currently unfolding within our unconsciousness, are hurtful. For example, functioning from felt perception makes it intolerable to mine the earth out of greed, unbearable to manipulate others just for profit, and inconceivable to imprison animals in concentration camps for the production of food. By the time we are adults, we function primarily from thought perception, with our thoughts hypnotically fixated upon the seemingly inanimate appearance of our previously animated experience. In other words, we have moved from an internal vibrational experience of life that is felt to a physicalized external experience that is thought about. This perceptual condition constantly leads us to turn our attention outward, away from any felt insight about our authentic emotional condition. As long as we are perceptually externalized in this state of felt numbness, it is easy to mentally justify any physical behavior. In this state of felt paralysis, we have little or no access to the resonance of what we mentally call conscience, which is the ability to feel the consequences of our presence upon earth. While functioning from a physically transfixed point of view, our version of conscience is a mentally driven concept and the exhibiting of a predetermined, rule restricted physical model of behavior. Where is our past? By the time we have become adults, perceptually, our life experience constitutes all that matters. When we look back upon our life experience, we perceive it as an accumulated sequence of physical events and circumstances that have unfolded up to this moment. Accordingly, the past appears to us as something outside of us, because this is the assumption behind all physical events and circumstances that are happening outside of us. There is a perceptual error in perceiving the past as something behind us, something that we can look back on, something outside of us. The past is not behind us. No matter how often and how quickly we physically turn around, we cannot see a past behind us. Our past is also not outside of us. Aside from the scattering of objects we surround ourselves with that come from our past, when we look around, we do not see the events of our past outside of us. We only see their consequences. For instance, we cannot see the experience we call our childhood as something happening out there upon the earth. We can only see its consequences. This is because the past is not behind us or outside us. The past is inside us, radiating outwardly as our current circumstances. If we are able to accept that the causal punctuations of the events that make up the experiences we call our past are contained within us, then what is our past currently made of? Nothing is happening. When we do not function from felt perception, we look back upon our past as something that happened outside of us, something to which we have attached a story. It therefore appears to us that our past is an accumulation of constantly changing physical events and circumstances. This appearance of constant change is because the physical aspect of our experience is also a master magician. It is constantly changing its form. Constant change is its constant. Each dawning day appears different, and this constant changing of physical appearance leads us to assume each day is new, and that within each new day we are having a new experience. Each day we awaken and the weather is adjusted. while people are standing in different places, dressed in different clothing. We eat different food and attend different activities. We perform different tasks at different times. This leads us to assume our life is a constantly changing series of events and circumstances. This appearance of each day being a new one, because it looks different, is a story we tell ourselves that is supported by the ever changing appearances of form, the sleight of hand of our physical experience. Yet a deception underlies this appearance of change. Awareness of this deception stirs whenever we think or say something like, "Why does this keep happening to me?" An uncomfortable truth slithering beneath this illusion of constant change is also reflected back to us whenever we attempt to adjust our physical circumstances or our thoughts about something in an effort to change the quality of our experience. From within the appearance of constant change smiles a hidden truth. It smiles at us as our inevitable re entry into the same frequency of inner felt discomfort from which we have repeatedly attempted to mentally and physically liberate ourselves. If our life is truly ever changing, ever new, then why do we experience boredom? The feeling of boredom is a clue that despite all the outer activity, despite all our mental and physical efforts to change the quality of our experience, nothing really happens or changes. Something only appears to be happening or changing. Chapter 4: The Vibrational. The word vibrational is used within this text instead of the word spiritual because the word spiritual is as emotionally charged as it is vague. The word vibrational, on the other hand, hints at something that is crucial when intending to enter a conversation with the unspeakable. The importance of feeling. The word spiritual, because it is already so conceptually encased, may cause unintentional segregation. The moment we identify ourselves as a spiritual person, we may unconsciously be making an assumption that there are others upon this earth who are not spiritual. But who isn't spiritual? Only when we are physically transfixed and caught up in constant mental interpretation of our experiences do we perceive that some people are of spirit while others are not. By defining ourselves as a spiritual person, we may also open ourselves to the error of adopting specific behaviors we assume are characteristic of spiritual people. Then, when a moment arises in which we are called upon to behave authentically, if this required behavior is not within our definition of what constitutes being a spiritual person, we are trapped. We cannot behave authentically because it is not spiritual. Perceiving ourselves as a spiritual person can therefore make us vulnerable to the perceptual confusion our entry into so called spirituality is intended to liberate us from. The word vibrational is free of all this mental and emotional baggage. It is neutral. A vibrational experience is a felt encounter, not a mental understanding we come to or a physical behavior we have to adopt or portray. Therein is the master clue as to how we are to approach a conversation with the unspeakable. Being in the womb. We have discussed how the pathway of awareness moves from the emotional resonance of childhood through the mental stage through our teenage years and then into the physical transfixed encounters of our adulthood. However, this energetic pathway does not begin at the moment of birth, and the start of the emotional period of childhood. It commences within the womb as a vibrational resonance. That's why we call it rebirthing breathwork, y'all. It commences within the womb as a vibrational resonance. The essence of a vibrational state is being. This is also why the womb experience may be considered a vibrational experience for us. We can do nothing in the womb aside from be. While in the womb, our being is immersed in vibrations, in the sum of the vibrations we experience through our mother's beating heart, blood pumping, lungs breathing, vocal tone, body temperature, body posture, and so on. Our exit from the womb marks the transition point from being to doing. The first cycle of 7. We do not immediately enter the womb at the moment of conception. The physical vehicle we call our body first goes through a period of development, empowering it with the capacity to contain the immensity of our vibrational essence. Our awareness only enters the physical body at about 2 months into the 9-month pregnancy cycle. We are therefore in the womb for a period of 7 months. This 7-month experience in the womb is our first 7 cycle. We may therefore call this 7-month womb experience the initial vibrational aspect that inaugurates our journey along the pathway of awareness. Seen from its point of inauguration, the journey we take along the pathway of awareness as we enter our experience upon this earth moves from vibrational womb to emotional childhood to mental teenage to physical adult. Imprinting, imprinting, imprinting. The word imprinting within the text of this book refers to the deliberate transference of energetic data which occurs within the first 21 years of our life experience, within the first emotional, mental, and physical 7-year cycles. Because the transference of this data is energetic, in the midst of its unfolding, the actual procedure of imprinting is practically impossible to perceive by the individual being imprinted. So as we move beyond the first 3 7-year cycles into becoming mentally and physically transfixed by our experience, the presence and impact of this imprinting upon the quality of our human experience remains hidden. The intent of this energetic transference is to systematically imprint our emotional, then mental, and then physical body with specific data that we can access when we attain the capacity to adjust it. Imprinting is like energetic tattooing. It may also be thought of as the downloading of consequences into the emotional, mental, and physical components of our human experience, or the grounding into this life of karma from previous life experiences. Imprinting commences while we are in the womb as an energetic transmission, a vibrational pattern delivered to us through the intricacies of our mother's experience. It then continues to unfold as a felt impression within the first 7 years of our life after birth, as a mental impression, telling stories from 7 to 14 years of age, and then as a physical impression between 14 to 21 years of age. From the age of 21 onward, our life experience is overshadowed and underlined by this imprinted pattern and remains so until we awaken to it and consciously interact with it. Vibrational transmission. As a means of illustrating this imprinting procedure, we shall journey through the various stages of the experience using a fictitious series of events. We will tell a story intended to assist us to consciously integrate the imprinting procedure. In the telling of this story, we will examine the dynamics and impact of an imprinted event or downloaded piece of energetic data that reoccurs with the regularity of our 7-year cycles. The telling of this story gradually reveals how an imprinted experience becomes an unseen causal point of the repetitious nature of many of the uncomfortable aspects of our life experience. In other words, imprinting is the answer to the question, why does this keep happening to me? We commence our story by beginning within the womb experience, the vibrational aspect of the pathway of awareness. To serve the purpose of this illustration, we are going to examine an event that is already imprinted at the 6-year point along the vibrational, emotional, mental, and physical 7-year cycles. Imprinting of abandonment. Let us suppose that an incident takes place in the 8th month of our mother's pregnancy. Our mother and father have a heated dispute. They married each other, turned into each other's parents, and now cannot stand being together. After all, who wants to sleep with their parent? In the wake of a nasty emotional fight, our father walks out. In this moment, there is a powerful emotional resonance we may conceptually call abandonment. Our father abandons our mother, and our mother feels abandoned by our father. This resonance of abandonment is made up of an emotional salad containing the ingredients of fear, anger, and grief. Fear, anger, and grief are the trinity of all emotional dysfunction. Fear relates directly to the physical. It is a reaction to the threatening of our physical mortality. Anger relates directly to the mental. Revenge is a plot. Grief relates directly to the emotional body. While in the womb, we do not experience the frequency of abandonment as the emotions of fear, anger, and grief, but rather as powerful vibrations. Our mother's experience throughout this emotional encounter is transmitted to us vibrationally through the way her physical condition mirrors her emotional encounter within the heat of the moment. As this emotional encounter between our mother and father unfolds, the resonance of abandonment penetrates our awareness through the way our mother's heart beats, the way she breathes, the way her blood pumps. It's in the tone of her voice as she expresses, and in the movement of her physical frame. Consequently, the complexity of the emotional signature beneath the experience of abandonment impacts our vibrational awareness in a precise manner. A deliberate signal. The vibrational body is different from the emotional, mental, and physical bodies. In fact, in that, the emotional, mental, and physical bodies can be imprinted, temporarily altered, whereas the vibrational cannot. The vibrational body simply transmits a signal. Once the signal is passed through, there is no record left of the transmission. Our 7-month womb experience is used to transmit and carry a signal
vibrationally from our previous incarnation to the incarnation we are now intending. This signal is deliberately carried by the vibrational through the womb as experiences mirrored through our mother while we are in the womb. In other words, our mother's experience during pregnancy is a deliberately staged, multi-dimensional experience containing the raw data of the seeds of our potential. During the first 7 years of our life, this vibrational transmission is deliberately deposited into our emotional body as distinct energetic patterns. As long as we are physically transfixed by our experience, we do not have the capacity to perceive the absolute deliberateness of this imprinting experience. Accordingly, it appears as if everything is happening randomly, chaotically, and meaninglessly. The reason it appears so is that the entire imprinting experience is one of energy in motion, an energetic unfolding whose deliberateness we cannot perceive while we lack emotional body awareness. Imprinting the emotional. As we depart the womb, the vibrational signal we have received is systematically discharged by being imprinted as a pattern, like a tattoo, into the emotional body. To get a picture of this imprinting procedure, we continue with our illustration. We now move from the abandonment experience between our mother and father that occurred 8 months into our womb experience to when we are 6 years old, which is 6 years along our first 7 year cycle after birth. Our parents have attempted to patch things up and stay together for the sake of the child. But the reality is that they cannot stand the sight of each other. They are clearly reflecting each other's unintegrated issues. But because they are both physically transfixed and lack emotional body awareness, they believe they must resolve matters by changing the other person through discussion, debate, and the request of conditions instead of looking within. This leads them to a dead end situation, divorce. As the divorce proceedings unfold, we, as a 6 year old, interact with this event primarily through our emotional body. We do not yet have the mental, conceptual capacity to know what the word divorce means, nor the accumulated physical life experience to contain what a divorce proceeding between two people entails in any manner that is integrated. For us, it is predominantly an emotional experience, an encounter with uncomfortable feelings. As our mother and father move through this experience, for us it means the surfacing of a resonance of abandonment containing the emotional salad of fear, anger, and grief. Through our child's experience of felt perception, this resonance of abandonment is now imprinted into our emotional body. Consequently, it dictates the way our energies move in motion. More accurately, it sets up a condition in which certain aspects of our energetic system no longer move freely in motion. This becomes our emotional blueprint. Imprinting the mental. We fast forward another 7 years to the age of 13, 6 years along our second 7 year cycle after birth. We now live with our mother in in a neighborhood in which we have become close friends with one particular individual. Because we now clearly have abandonment issues, we cling almost obsessively to this one person. They are our declared best friend. One day, our best friend's parents are informed that they are being transferred out of state. And within 2 weeks, our companion is ripped out of our reality. We again experience the resonance of abandonment, which is made of the emotional salad containing fear, anger, and grief. However, even though this impacts us as a powerful emotional experience, we do not encounter it as such. By now, we have been going to school where we are taught magic. Consequently, we interact with this experience mentally, conceptually. We engage with this event by telling ourselves a story about who we are and about the nature of the world we live in. Through this story, we are establishing our belief system. This becomes my story, the weaving of the mystery. Through this storytelling, the resonance of abandonment is tattooed into our mental body. Imprinting the physical. We fast forward another 7 years to the age of 20, 6 years along our third 7 year cycle after birth. We are now a young adult, deeply in love with someone, standing at the altar in a church, waiting for them to arrive. The fact is, we now have acutely deep set abandonment issues and therefore ask this person to marry us 3 days after our first date. We wait eagerly at the altar. This promises to be the most wonderful day of our life so far. We look at our watch repeatedly as the minutes tick slowly by. Eventually, it dawns on us that we have been ditched at the altar. We again enter the resonance of abandonment, a salad made up of fear, anger, and grief. Even though we display strong emotional reactions to what is unfolding, it is not primarily an emotional experience for us. Even though we again tell ourselves a story about what is going on in that moment, it is no longer primarily a mental experience for us. By the age of 20, our awareness is firmly transfixed by the physical components of our experience. Consequently, the experience of abandonment is now primarily a physical circumstance or predicament, and we voice it as such. How dare she do this? How dare she do this to me on this day with all these people here? We perceive the resonance of abandonment according to the physical circumstances in which we now find ourselves. In this way, the resonance of abandonment is tattooed into the physical aspect of our experience. Why does this keep happening to me? We again fast forward 7 years to the age of 27. We are now a successful young professional. We entered a field of study for 4 years and exited with a qualification that enabled us to gain lucrative employment. Because we are extremely needy and have powerful underlying abandonment issues, we worked really hard, lived through a life of late nights, smoozing with the right people, wearing the right clothes, and being seen in the right places. During an evening's encounter of loose tongued cocktail banter, our boss insinuates that we are the right person for a position opening at the end of the month. Our neediness makes this drunken talk believable to us. On the day of the promotion announcement, our boss gives the position to the person in the office next to us, a person we assumed was our best friend. We are devastated. We are also embarrassed because we told everyone we were going to be promoted. Underneath the tidal wave of anxiety we are feeling runs the resonance of abandonment. We feel abandoned by our boss, by our best friend, by our years of study, and by all our social efforts. Even though we are emotionally distraught and mentally imploding, it is on the physical circumstances that our focus is now concretely transfixed. We ask ourselves, how can this be happening to me? How dare the boss let me down? Look at how hard I worked for him. What was it all for? At this point, we may ask a question that holds the clue to the causal point of our personal turmoil. If we ask it sincerely, it has the capacity to assist us to realize what is really unfolding. The question is, of course, why does this keep happening to me? Emotionally blinded. We feel like we are cursed and cannot understand why. We work hard, we try our best, yet in the moment when it really counts, we appear to be sabotaged by unseen forces. Life isn't fair, we declare. When we look back upon our life through eyes now concretely transfixed upon the accumulation of physical events and circumstances from which we tell our story, it appears as if our life experience is an ever-changing mishap of bad luck. Because of the sleight of hand of the physical aspect of our experience, its ability to dress each day up differently, we cannot see that since we were 7 years old, nothing new has ever happened to us. We cannot realize this because we no longer view our life upon earth through eyes that can perceive the causal point of our experience, the eyes of realization that perceive energy in motion. Our physical eyes can now only show us the various forms our initial childhood experiences have been shaped into. And these physical manifestations are constantly changing because the only constant of the physical aspect of our experience is that it constantly changes. When we look upon our life experience as an accumulation of physical events and circumstances, we are blind to what stays the same. Our physical eyes cannot perceive anything that remains unchanged. Yet, often, when we enter states of discomfort, a niggling voice within our awareness whispers to us of something that never seems to change. Our mental eyes of understanding are just as blind because they only perceive the story. They only perceive the story we have told ourselves about what is happening to us, a story that contains as much truth as the story Frank told himself about how Fluffy arrived in Rover's mouth. When we then source our behavior from this story, we enter the same level of comic tragedy Frank did and unleash the same caliber of drama as he did upon himself and his neighbors. This is the comic tragedy behind a reliance on analysis. When we mentally analyze our life, we inevitably enter assumption and end up feeling like an asshole. Once we enter adulthood, our predicament is that we have almost no emotional body awareness and cannot therefore perceive energy and motion, with the consequence that we are to a large extent perceptually blinded. From our perceptually incapacitated state, when we look back upon our life, at the divorce of our parents when we were 6, at the sudden departure of our best friend when we were 13, at the no show of our fiance when we were 20, and at the perceived betrayal by our boss at the age of 27, all these events appear to be completely separate incidents having nothing in common. They happened at different periods in our life and appear completely unrelated to in their unfolding. Yet the clue to our tragic predicament arises like the dawning of the sun and offers its light whenever we exclaim with frustration, "Why does this keep happening to me?" In the work I do, I call it personal law or personal lie or core negatives. We help people find their core personal lie. And you see the underlying factor underlying all the apparent different events. I mean, there's a reason the Michael Brown was healed by rebirthing breathwork, and which is why there's a similarity between what he writes about and what I teach. Um, he trained in a different school, but there's overlap. I'm wondering about 6 minutes. But I think I'm going to stop here, give the next show a few minutes to get ready. And it's kind of in balance with where I stopped last time, just before the end of the chapter. That way, when I finish the chapter, it'll be kind of a review for you before we go on to the next chapter. So we'll stop here. I want to thank everyone, thank all of you for joining me here on Children of the Sun. Um, I want you guys to have a good weekend. Get out in nature, feel the energies of nature. If you want to hear this show again, kind of like, and I realize this is some advanced stuff, maybe some difficult stuff, so you could play it back on video and slow the speed down, pause it when you need to. So that's all on my YouTube channel, Ray Bratcher. You can go to Breathe Only Love on Linktree. Find me there. Sacred Breath, Gateway to Freedom is my WordPress blog, and that'll have the radio show on it. So, and I'll put it up on my Facebook page as well. So hopefully you'll be able to find it. Oh, this Sunday at 7:30, I'm doing the Sunday 7:30 sitting on Zoom. You don't have to have Zoom to do it. You just have to have an internet connection and a browser. You click on the link in your browser, Zoom will open up your browser, and you'll be looking at me just like today. Only I do like a meditation and a breathwork exercise usually. I don't read from any book, I just talk from the heart. And, we started it during the lockdown during COVID. So people had a way of dealing with all the anxiety. And it's become kind of a really cool meditation place. Um, and I teach the breath work that I do with one-on-one clients is like a 2-hour thing, and we really get into basically human liberation. Um, the breath work that I teach in the class, the Sunday sitting, is like 15-minute. Well, actually, it's like exercise. It's like things you can do every day. 30 seconds here, a minute or two there, if you're like, just to help you deal, because right now we are all dealing. So, and people find that helpful, which is why I do it. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next Friday at 12:30. Well, I wanted to smile. I don't see myself. All right. Hello. I'm moving in like slow motion. I'm waiting for the past to catch up with the present. Dare I move? All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. I don't know what to tell you. This is some major latency going on here. Hopefully, you were able to hear the audio. All right. Love you all. Have a great weekend. Um, See you next Friday, Children of the Sun, 12:30 on WSTX AM 970. Bye.